Hello. Welcome to episode 22 of Watching Privacy. Yeah, 22 sounds about right. We got Raju and Brent with us as always, and close to the end of the year, but we got a couple more episodes today, and next week we'll do another one. And let's just jump in. I think we got a few things to talk about. First one I would say is our friends over at Zoom had a class action settlement for a lawsuit that they basically or a class action lawsuit. They started a settlement. There's basically, long story short, there's like two buckets of people that are affected. If you're a paying customer, I think you might get like up to 15% or $25, whichever one is more. And if you were a free user, you could get entitled to receive $15. I'm not sure if these numbers are static or if they're dynamic, like other settlements are, where like if too many people basically submit that they were quote affected or want to join the class action, if that number goes down or not. I'm not exactly sure. But I guess the main reason for the actual lawsuit itself was I'll just read from the article that they got. The plaintiffs in the lawsuit allege Zoom shared information with third parties in an unauthorized manner through SDKs and marketplace apps, that it failed to prevent unwanted meeting disruptions by third parties, aka Zoom bombing, and that Zoom misrepresented its end-to-end encryption, which the company has since fixed. And so I know the end-to-end encryption we talked about, I think way early on, and the misleading nature of that, which they said they've fixed. Unauthorized sharing of data, I mean, not really a surprise on that one, but at least is this a win? Is this so? I mean, something's better than nothing, I feel like, in these kind of situations.
It's more to do with security than the privacy aspect, but it's a win. But the thing that stands out for me with all these settlements is, I receive a bunch of these and I never collect them. Partly because to collect that information, you have to provide a lot of your personal information.
Indeed.
What happens to all that information that they now collect officially as part of the settlement? And I'm also curious what happens to the uncollected settlement fee. Does it remain with Zoom, or does it go back to maybe an FTC or something like that? Always
Lawyers.
worried about it, but probably. But even if you click on that link from Zoom, they want your address information, your name, email address, and all that information out there. And I find it ironic that they are not in this case, but in other cases, like if you take Equifax, for example, they leaked my personal information, but to collect a settlement, I need to provide them additional personal information. It is ironic with all these settlements. I never go for it.
It also feels like just another case of it's easier to ask for forgiveness than it is to ask for permission up front. So, and maybe give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it was, the right intentions, and then they wandered into, risky waters. But I also like what Raju said. I felt like this is more about security than privacy, because Zoom bombing was more about party crashers, basically, than about the protection of data. So it's more about security than it is about our privacy concerns. I think, at least that's what it felt like to me.
But I think the reason I bring up that collecting additional information for the settlement is, what are they going to do with that information, especially when we learned a few episodes ago that they're getting into ad business.
And so that data will come in handy, maybe, right?
I'm sure. Yeah. But good to see the progress on this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess to be not so negative, I would say one good thing is, I mean, I'd much rather have these types of fines have the customers who are affected get some level of benefit, right? Rather than let's say $100 million fine or whatever the dollar amount is, going to the government, and then it just kind of goes into this black hole, and nobody has any idea whatever happens to these fines, where it went, what it funded, did it actually yield anything. Here, whether it's $5, 15, whatever it is, we know it's like never enough to like feel like you've been compensated properly, but it is still something going back to the people actually affected, which is arguably kind of a good thing. But I mean, that $15 could be 30 if the lawyers didn't take their 50% cut right off the bat too, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of, I would say, nefarious actions going on inside of here.
I got to ask yourself though, if I were a paid subscriber, you're capped at $25, and if you were not a paid subscriber, but somehow use the service, you $15. It's not that big a difference. It seems like you would get a little bit more significant restitution, so to speak, if you were a paid subscriber, but not really.
Yeah.
Well, in both cases, either 15 or 25, it sounded much better than Equifax $3 or 86 cents or something for losing or leaking your social security information.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, I would say one positive thing. I was just clicking around here. At least the website zoommeetingclassaction.com has a privacy policy for it, and at least they specifically say that like the data is stored only for existing purposes. It's not transferred. It's not sold. It's deleted later on. So like at least the website itself collecting the information seems to be I would say, secure or not as bad as others. But yeah, I guess you never really know. And I think at the end of the day, just that erosion of trust keeps everybody kind of questioning what's actually going to happen here or not.
Did you say used for existing purposes?
Used. No, I didn't say existing. Used for like only the purpose that you're submitting it, like only for that class action. It's not used like shared or whatever. But yeah, I guess switching gears a little bit, Brent's favorite company, Clearview AI, is going to get this little patent maybe for facial recognition technology. And basically they want to patent this search engine for faces concept. And we've talked about it before a couple times. Clearview has maybe a little bit of a checkered past in terms of what they do, their business model, and how they collect it. But just to recap, they basically scan the entire internet and collect a bunch of images of a bunch of people with or actually without their consent. Essentially, nobody's really happy about it. Google's not happy. Facebook's not happy. Other data aggregators are not happy that this information is being scraped. They collect all that information, they'll associate it, create some sort of facial recognition technology out of it, and primarily work with government and law enforcement in order to use that information for whatever purposes of safety and security and things along those lines. Most people aren't really happy with them. Part of me thinks, is it a good thing that they get the patent because then they're the only ones doing it and other people wouldn't? Or is it one of those things where, like, how does a patent really affect what they're doing? I guess not so much, maybe. What did you guys think of this?
I actually didn't have an issue with the patent itself. I do have an issue with the application of the patent. So there are two different things. And it's not surprising that some of the other companies are complaining about it. If you look at the companies complaining about it, it's the companies who collect the data from users without users' permissions are complaining about another company who's collecting the data without their permission, right? In both cases, it's the end users that are losing, and this goes back to, this is where the legislation, all of that should step in. This goes back to the same issue we talked about so many times, where users' data and their privacy is being dropped while Washington is sleeping. And this is yet another case where the legislation is so delayed, or at least there's no law protecting users from this. I think this is where it goes. It should go back to users' information being protected, and users should be in control of it. But the patent itself is about maybe how to do it and all of that. But not all patents become a product. In this case, it clearly is a product. But the application of that patent and the data, or they could patent their technology and they can't patent our faces. So which is what is feeding it.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah.
I kind of agree with you on that, but I also I wonder about how update how updated is the patent process these days? Because do they look at the company and the company's track record around these issues before they, give them the go ahead, give them the patent? I tend to believe if they get this, the answer is definitely no. And this is where I think some of these patent processes have to be updated to match the current state. And Clearview getting this, it's almost like, putting a big bowl of candy in front of little children. Do they know how to regulate how much to eat? I don't know about that. So I'm on its face. Yeah, it's a patent. It's, it kind of makes sense. But beyond the surface, it's the company and their track record get asking for the ability to capture a whole bunch of digital data, and we don't know where the line is and how they're going to use it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say at the end of the day, Clearview's customer base is the government. So it's in the government's best interest to help these guys out however they can. And that's basically how it's going to go, unless the patent office is like extremely independent. But I would say like it's not even really a political thing; it's more of a government thing because it doesn't matter what side you're on, or like the government's going to want to work with law enforcement and collect this information, and that's what it's almost like it's scarier when everybody agrees on one thing in government because that's like when it's really bad for some people.
Yeah. And then you ask yourself, the government, isn't it supposed to be for the people, not for the government itself?
Therein, therein lies the conflict here, where you are expecting, privacy protecting laws on behalf of the users, but they are the ones benefiting from it. Should we expect anything from them? I think that is where the conflict is.
I mean, no different with Facebook, Google, Amazon. These folks too. Governments work with all these people, and there's always. I mean, you just don't hear about the stories, but I think
at least in this case, is the primary customer. Government is the primary customer.
Yeah,
more direct.
There will be other use cases. See, there are good ways of using the technology. For example, Apple does it. Apple does it in their Photos app. They recognize the face and they suggest some photos and whatnot. And in this case, it doesn't leave the phone. Hope it that is the case. It doesn't leave the phone, and everything is done on the device. That's a positive thing, and there are good uses of the same tech. And in this case, they are Clearview. It comes down to the ethics of the company. Clearly, doesn't have the right ethics, and they are doing it the wrong way. It's the patent or the technology is never the problem. It is the application of that patent and the technology and the ethics of the ones that are implementing this. Therein lies the problem.
Gotcha.
I actually see this as the real Facebook. Don't be surprised if Facebook or Meta acquires this version of it.
You can honestly see that happening, and I don't think a lot of people will think much of it because they haven't heard of Clearview. But man, could you imagine if either of the big guys end up buying Clearview and what that could potentially lead to?
Yeah,
it'd be bad.
There are other things that will lead to when this becomes mainstream. People will not be comfortable putting their mugshot online, and they will not upload their photos online, and that privacy conscious people will adjust, right? Don't be surprised if there'll be more avatars online representing you, and it's a matter of time. And there are these sites like thispersondoesnotexist.com, right? Where you take a mugshot from there and put it as your profile pic. So those...
Roger, let me tell you about NFTs, my friend.
I'll just quickly add on to that. I recently spoke to one of the VPs over at NVIDIA, and they were showing off some of their latest and greatest AI technology from both the graphics perspective and voice synthesis and all that. So they did an illustration or a demo of a guy on a job interview. He's being interviewed by someone in their corporate headquarters, and he's in a coffee shop with with his hat turned to the back, and all sorts of stuff going on. But what the person sees that's interviewing him is him in like a regular office setting. And the technology took from a picture and built a digital avatar. And it's him, and he sounds just like him because he's actually talking through this avatar. But then there's also a part where they do a voice synthesis. So they take people's voice, and then he just starts typing in things because it got real loud in the background.
And
But
starts talking.
he's typing it, and his digital avatar is saying it in his voice.
Yeah, it's going to get crazy, and especially with the remote work. Don't be surprised if there is a different person doing interview on your behalf with your face and with your voice.
Matter of fact, is that Raju?
Never know.
All right, let's switch gears a little bit on this one. What do you call it? Clearview was Brent's favorite company, and Airtags are Raji's favorite product. So this is a good segue on that. But apparently, they're being used to track and steal luxury cars in Canada, and there's been a couple reports of this. And if you're not familiar with the AirTag, I guess it's like a small little Bluetooth tracking device meant to be attached to like keys and luggages and backpacks, so you can find things that are lost around or whatever. And I guess these thieves are basically just attaching them to cars and then seeing where the cars go and following them. And then at a certain hour, I guess you just kind of find out. Maybe you don't want to steal like a nice car from, a grocery store parking lot, but once they get home, then, you can steal it from there where a lot less eyes are kind of on you. I guess not a good situation to have your car stolen, I guess, but at least we know the tracking capability is working. So if you lose your car, you can find it very easily. So on a positive note, there's that.
I think from the first episode, I've been saying it. I hate this technology. This is a new can of worms, and Apple legitimized that market. Something like this existed with Tile and others who have been doing it, but Apple, with its might now, with the launch of this, they pretty much made it a thing. And Apple might be secure, but there'll be other companies, competitors to Apple, offering it at a smaller, lower price. They'll get into the market, and then they'll start selling that information. So it's just a matter of time where it kind of goes out of hand. This is just probably the first abuse of AirTags we are seeing, just the beginning. And, putting it, they call it the find my feature, right? Well, now they might as well rename it as Find Me, because they are really, throw in a AirTag in there, and then you'll be able to, they'll be able to find you. And this is cars is just one use case. I'm sure there are a bunch of creative use cases that'll come out of it. So I do not like this technology, and this over the next or the coming years we'll find that this made surveillance really, really, really bad in the industry. 5 years from now, we'll look back and say what a mistake that was.
I don't even know if it's going to take 5 years. It feels like we're already starting to, with articles like that and things like this happening.
Yeah.
It's always a shame, because amongst all these themes, these kind of running themes that we have every week, it's not the technology, it's the people and how they use the technology that makes it either really good or really bad. And that's a real shame, because I have a pretty certain feeling that, Apple thought of this as something that would be net positive and good for their users. But look what happens. People with these, gotta say it, nefarious, sinister motives come and just take what could potentially be a really good technology and make it bad. And it's really, unfortunately, when it comes to the privacy stuff, we're seeing and hearing more of that than making it reach the positivity that it could reach. So it's really sad.
I saw this other article. It was either on Reddit or Hacker News, one of the two. But this person took like these AirTags and shipped them to like random places. You would just put it in an envelope and ship the AirTag, basically to see how accurate the tracking was for like packages and stuff like that. And he sent one to like Tim Cook, he sent one to like North Korea, he sent one to like random places like all over, and just seeing like how tracking goes and like how accurate and how much better you can kind of see the delivery of an item. And at the end of the day, these things are being heavily discounted. I think around the holiday times for $20, it's almost cheaper than getting package insurance because you know where the package is, and if you just drop an AirTag in there and figure out, and that $30 price point is like with the Apple Premium markup, right? I mean, you can probably get, like Raji mentioned, a lot cheaper with this technology. I wouldn't be surprised if it costs less than $10 probably to actually make, and someone will make it for that cheaper amount going forward. I don't know. I have AirTags. I kind of like it. I'm not going to lie to you. So I feel a little bit biased on this one, but the the issue also, I think Raji might have mentioned it way earlier, was with the Find My network. I think people are like opted into it by default, which kind of destroys it, right? If I buy AirTags and I kind of set it up for my phone, it's like, cool, man. Hey, do you want to set up this, join this network in order to do it? But by turning it on by default, then we know about defaults, and defaults should never be the case. Everyone should have the option to see what their choices are and the benefits and the cons of it. But yeah, I mean, this tracking stuff will go a lot worse. I know people who put an AirTag on their dogs, put them in their kids' backpack when they go to school, things like that. I mean, and so people seem to be swearing by them because they're like, this is a great way for me to know what's going on and kind of from a safety perspective. But there's always bad use cases for this kind of technology, which is kind of scary. But I guess an even better segue from the AirTag story is our friends over at the Markup had this article, and last week I think we talked about how this company called Life360 purchased Tile, which is basically an AirTag competitor, or AirTags were their competitor, however you want to look at it. And I mentioned at the end briefly that I don't think Life360 is a very like privacy secure app or whatever like that, based on the limited reading I did. But the Markup does a great job of creating a pretty good deep dive into Life360. I think they're used by something like 33 million people worldwide use Life360. The app has been selling data on kids and families' whereabouts to approximately a dozen data brokers who have sold data to virtually anyone who wants to buy it. And so, I mean, this is where it gets really scary. I would say the benefit of the AirTag piece is maybe that, first party Apple, you kind of trust maybe some semblance of not really having to share the data and stuff like that. But for a company like Tile that, essentially had a pretty big market on its own, and Life360 on top of it, they're going to be collecting and selling your data a lot more. I mean, forget the Tile angle, just Life360 in general as a family tracking app, selling information on the families and their kids and whereabouts and stuff like that to these data brokers, on top of charging people a subscription to pay for Life360, seems like a pretty, I would say, not good company kind of actions, if you ask me. Did you guys get anything else out of it now?
Raju, can you hear us? I think Raju might be having some issues. Yeah, so I think you actually got him kind of angry going over the Apple AirTag thing, and you know how he feels about that, man. He might have some feelings about that. But anyway, yeah, didn't we just talk about these guys just last week?
Yeah,
and now this comes up, and then I kind of wanted to look maybe a little deeper into it, just based on what the Markup wrote, because I was looking at this slide and they had these quotes from these guys or people that were using it at their former employers. Mm-hmm. One of them was X Mode. And so I wanted to see, well, what's going on with X Mode? So I did a search on X Mode, and
this is not going to be good.
They rebranded themselves as OutLogic, and they were acquired. So they rebranded. They were acquired by this company in Atlanta, Digital Envoy. Now, I don't know these guys at all, but I just found it interesting that took place. And so I wanted to see, well, what's Digital Envoy about? So as they claim on their website here, they are the inventors of IP intelligence. And that's not intellectual property. That's TCP/IP intelligence. So I got to bring all that up just to say that once your data is out there, it could start with a company you have a first-hand relationship with. But as we keep saying over and over and over, it doesn't end there. And usually, particularly when it's a company that has a lot of data that maybe is hard to get, it gets got, so to speak, through acquisition. Somebody else buys them. And
Exactly.
then you got to figure out, well, who's that company and who do they deal with? And so even going back to the initial markup, they're calling it Xmod. Well, this company, the former employees from Xmode is already turned into OutLogic. OutLogic gets acquired by Digital Envoy and then becomes a part of their offering along with all the other things they're doing. So once this data is out of the barn, there's no coming back. And that's maybe that's why I'm stuck on this whole patent process, because if the company is able to get a patent just based on the technology and not on the company, its ethics, and having to state how they're going to use this data, it's too late. It's gone without a trace.
Yeah,
Well,
like
it's
this
actually gone with a trace.
and the aggregation, like you mentioned, is an extremely scary part, because oftentimes, like, you went down the rabbit hole and looked for this, but otherwise you probably would have never got a notification. Like if you were a Tile customer or or a Life 360 customer who was having your information purchased, acquired, resold, and obviously like de-anonymized and deaggregated, when you have these brokers basically swooping up a lot of these other brokers and creating I would say big corporations, obviously, or bigger market market caps in general. And ultimately, I think at the end of the day, like, a lot of people pay attention, or most attention goes to, like, big tech companies, Facebook, Amazon, Google, and stuff like that. But they don't realize this whole like data aggregator market and the consolidation happening over there or over here, I guess, and how that can impact this kind of data transfer from all sorts of different places, right? Roger, are you back?
Yeah.
Maybe. There you go.
Just think about the Life 360 customers and thinking they're using their data is going to be held over here by this company for this use. And it doesn't take long before they share it with the company that gets acquired, and then you're at the you have to deal with the ethics of the new company. Or you might, like you said, you might not even know there's a new company. It's pretty slippery slope.
That is likely the case. And here the thing is, as user, they not only, as someone said, they not only can track your kids and your family members, there are other people who can track too. It's a new feature. And I'm also seeing a new trend here in business models. And if you look at the future products of Life 360, they're planning to launch some security-related products and privacy-related products. Where have I heard this before, right? So this is the trend. We see that with Google now. YouTube will sell ads, or they'll sell subscription. And we have seen that with Amazon through Eero and whatnot. They'll sell you ads and they'll sell you a subscription to remove ads. And here we are, they'll collect information and abuse your privacy, but to want to protect your privacy, they'll sell you that. So they make money either way. We lose either way. And there's a new business model emerging in this industry. We may see that take a next level next year.
Yeah, I think a funny thing is, Brent, when you're talking about the Xmode company, I was reading the last line of that slide, and it says a former Cubic, I assume I'm saying that right, Cubic employee joked that the company wouldn't be able to run its marketing campaigns without Life 360's constant flow of data. So I was like, what does Cubic do? Let me take a look. And I went over to their website real quick, and just on the first thing on the first page, their main tagline: "Mobility data that fuels growth." Introducing Workbench, the cloud data ecosystem that uses mobility data in an ironclad privacy framework. We're democratizing access to ethical and safe data. So the employee is joking that they're not able to do their marketing based on the data they're getting from Life 360, but they're marketing this product of private data, but they won't use the whole thing is just mind blowing all in itself. Like that the people that work at the privacy focused or apparently company are the ones joking about it, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really mean much. And I think what Raju said can't be understated enough. There's a lot of these, we're going to go back to our keyword, nefarious actors out there who create tools that are guised as privacy and security and safety type of tools that are ultimately those are the biggest threats as well, because you're preying on essentially like a vulnerable demographic where it comes to privacy and security. A normal layperson probably doesn't understand the ins and outs. Even technical people don't understand the ins and outs. And so it's very easy to just say, we make, like, for example, like McAfee antivirus, right? We've talked about how basically the antivirus software was the virus itself because it was collecting all the information on your computer and sharing it out. But a normal person would have no idea. And a lot of people probably don't even know about it to this day. And so I think it's even more important to really like dig into these companies, the partnerships, how it works, what's happening behind the scenes, in order to figure out who's, who's honest and ethical and who's not, right? Just because you say ethical on your website doesn't really make you ethical. It's got to be proven through some actions and hopefully in the type of business dealings you do.
End of the day, all these companies are turning out to be data brokers themselves, and they are using various avenues to collect the data. One collects the data through public information, others through private information, others through government, or in the name of credit checks, your information is collected. Through the name of property taxes, your information is collected. All of them, they not only collect that information, and they use that and sell that information through other sources, legal and not very legal sources. Right? I think these are all double dipping, and they are. Again, it goes back to my previous point. I think we made this several times. The privacy laws doesn't exist today in US, and there are some countries that are privacy friendly, some countries that are tax friendly, some countries that are tourist friendly, and there are some countries that are privacy abuse friendly. Today, with lack of laws, US has become privacy abuse friendly nation, and that is resulting in this wild west, and with abuse of information, user information. So unless a strong privacy law is in place, this won't change. I think we need that sooner rather than later, and I really hope to see that sometime next year. I've seen some proposals from FTC, and hopefully that'll go through, and hopefully we'll see something next year.
But until then, we can talk about maybe just another privacy invading situation over at Verizon or Domino's. Maybe fine, we'll talk about Domino's if Brent wants to.
No, we'll do that.
Do we lose Verizon? Oh, no, we still got Verizon. I like the Verizon story. I have Verizon, so I felt personally attacked by this article. When I read it, I didn't really believe it, and actually found out that I was affected by this, which kind of sucked. But basically, Verizon has this app, as most carriers do. It's like the My Verizon app where you can log in and basically see like your data usage, and if you need to make changes to your account. T-Mobile has like the My T-Mobile app, or I'm sure AT&T has a similar app that they use. But basically, this app had defaults on your device in terms of collecting your browsing history, location, apps, contacts, all in the name of helping the company understand your interests. And the program, which Verizon appears to automatically opt customers into, is called Verizon Customer Experience. Controls lays buried in the privacy page on the My Verizon app. And so it's kind of interesting because the app itself is not even necessary really to collect the information, a lot of the information that they're collecting, because as the network operator, they can collect your browsing history essentially through every single web request you make on a cellular network. Location obviously is happening through cell towers. Apps being installed can be probably figured out through some level of where that download is coming from, and and things like the contacts you probably can't get, but every person you call, they know. Obviously, you call them on their network, so they're going to know that. But this is just like on top, and then opting people into it by default, and then having it buried in the settings. I checked my Verizon app that I had on my phone, and the settings were on. I immediately turned them off, and then just deleted the app altogether. Don't have to worry about it anymore. But yeah, I'd say it's extremely just dishonest and misleading to have like an administrative app like that in terms of like managing your account, and that's the app that's doing these like bad things. It's not like a game or like some free thing where you kind of expect some level of trade off, and they got to do their thing. So I get it, but here's like I'm paying for your phone service, and here's the app for how you need to manage that account. And oh, by the way, once you install this app, we're going to have access to track everything to increase your services experience. And honestly, I've never had an increased experience. When people say we're going to collect information to create a better experience, how can a phone company make a better experience for me by knowing like my contacts? Like all you need to do is give me fast connection, more towers, and that's pretty much it. Like that's your job as the carrier. Like it's just reliability of connection and speed, and maybe figure out what 5G is and if we're ever actually going to get it. That's like your experience that you need to work on, not the other stuff. But the customer experience is really how can we upsell you to other Verizon services or their partners or everything else under that umbrella corporation. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I was kind of ticked about this one, but I'm not surprised if T-Mobile and AT&T do something similar. I'm sure I can dig up an article or two and figure it out, but I wouldn't be surprised by it one bit. What do you guys think?
These are data providers or data brokers. ISP is another data broker which has a lot of information, lot more information than some of the other apps and folks out there. The additional capability that a service provider like Verizon has is ability to, I guess, download a service plan and enable a SIM card and whatnot. There are some providers that will push a certain SIM plan, a service plan into your device. You can activate it, deactivate it. That also means they need and they collect this IMEI information about your device.
Yeah.
It means that you get to the real unique DID, device ID in there, and they can really track you.
That can't be anonymized, can't be reset, can't be shifted or modified like a MAC address or something
like
else.
a
Right?
MAC address, and with Apple introducing with the renewed MAC addresses and whatnot with the latest operating system, who can really ignore that and get back to the source, and that is where the IMEI and all of that comes in. So if you're installing that particular application, they likely has that information, and that is a unique thing, a differentiator for a service provider, that they can use that information, aggregate that, and then sell it to the other data brokers out there. I think that probably explains why they are requiring or collecting additional information. Obviously, they are using this information to sell it to other folks out there. They are selling your personal information. Then why not additional information? Just like McDonald's asks, "Hey, do you want fries with that?" Well, they'll say, "Do you want your device ID with that?" and sell that additional information for an add-on too. This is the sad state of the industry. I think that is where it's getting worse by the day.
Wow. I have nothing to add to that. I mean, it is. And we talked early on when we were getting started with this thing. We talked about, I know Raju especially talked about, you're an ad company. You may start out with something else, but as soon as you start collecting data and looking to monetize the data, your focus really goes to you being an ad company. And I think maybe the first steps into that is becoming this data broker company you just talked about. So it's almost sort of like we're seeing a pathway. You start at A, and any company could start at whatever their A is, but as soon as they start collecting data, they start getting on that one pathway. All roads lead to ads, your ad model.
And
And
there
it feels
is
like that's where we're going with all this stuff.
Here's an interesting thing. On one side, service providers want to go beyond a dumb data or dumb link provider, right? So that is where they want to add value, and they get into advertising business. And then we have companies like Google. They don't want to miss on this. There's a lot more information they can collect if they own the pipe. That's the reason Google or Google Fiber and all of those are coming at the other end, because they want to collect as much information. They don't want to know what you're doing on Google or some of the other sites. They want to know every single activity, and that is the reason they are getting into Google Fiber, and so that they can pretty much track everything, all 100% network activity that is going on in there, right? And that is, I guess, the advantage the pipe providers like Verizon have today that Google doesn't. And that's why Google getting into Google Fi or Google Fiber, all of these are along the same lines, collecting as much data as possible in the name of selling that information, and directly or indirectly, directly through ads or indirectly to other third parties.
We could wrap on this Domino story, because it's not even a story. It's just a screenshot of an email, which I think is hilarious. I'm gonna read this out real quick. Hello, Domino's customer. First of all, you know my name because you have my information. Don't call me customer, but that's beyond the point. In response to your request to opt out of the sale of personal information, we have ceased the selling of your personal information, and I've contacted any third-party vendors with whom we've sold your personal information. Great. As a reminder, your opt-out request is only valid on the device where you submitted the request and will expire if you clear your cookies, go into private browsing, or delete and reinstall our app. We are working on a technical solution to allow customers with a pizza profile to opt out across all Domino's online ordering channels, and will provide a notice if this is in our privacy policy once it's available. I don't know what idiots they have basically there running security and privacy and like any semblance of this, but this is just mind-blowing that you don't have an like account level control of the sale of information, and it's device specific. I don't even think this is just bad engineering in my opinion, because or really good, I guess you don't even know how to look at it, but I mean, yeah, weird and bad just on so many levels.
One thing we got to credit Domino's is at least you're able to find out that there is an opt-out button easily, and you are able to easily opt out. And they blatantly say that they're selling your personal information.
Is that not the case for other pizza providers?
No. Well, they are selling it. They are basically they'll basically say they'll basically say we might share your information for service improvement purposes and whatnot. In this case, they are outright they're honest about it, and I like that about it.
Yeah, they're very honest about it. But I got to go back to Tejas' first point. Hello, Domino's customer. Really? You already have my data. You could at least use it to say hi, to personalize it a little bit. And I do give them some points for
honesty,
for putting it right there.
I mean, no sugarcoating, no legalese, just a very simple. It wasn't even like a click to look at our policies or anything like that. It's just there. Yeah. So I mean,
and they followed up. I think that's the thing. I think once you submit the request, I think you get this a few weeks later. I think one of the first emails that they send out is I'll have to double check, but because we may have sold your information to multiple parties, it may take us some time to request and pull that information out. And I like the honesty again.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's not all bad, but it's definitely.
I have that app, by the way.
The Domino's app. Brent, over the Christmas break, you can create a comparison guide between different pizza providers and their privacy policies and how they vary, and who is our pizza privacy vendor to order from.
I'm going to do my market research just for you, Tejas.
And you can see the privacy impacts the pizza.
Smoking Cat didn't realize we were streaming today.
Yeah, it's an off day. My bad. I'm out of the office tomorrow. So sorry, Smoking Cat. Next Friday though, we'll be back on regular schedule, and next Friday will be the last show of the year, because the Friday after that is Christmas Eve, and the Friday after that is New Year's Eve, if I'm right. And so we'll circle back in January at some point. Last week I was very rudely told that I did not remember to say like, share, and subscribe, and the numbers have not hit what we need to rename this YouTube channel and give it a better URL. So I think we need 35 or so more subscribers on YouTube. So I would tell you youtube.com/something, but we don't get that until we get 100 subscribers. So please just search on YouTube for Watching Privacy. At least we show up there. Until maybe we get taken down, who knows? But for the time being, search for Watching Privacy on YouTube and hit subscribe. Feel free to share or like if you like this stuff. I think I guess we'll get into more about year-end recap stuff next week. But any other closing notes, or are we just ready to roll?
I think it'll be good to get some feedback from anyone out there through comments on some of the stories that they think we should cover, so that way we can discuss about it, share thoughts and additional stuff.
Yeah, we'll definitely come up with a pretty solid way. Right now, commenting or any kind of feedback or ideas or stories or even topics that are kind of confusing and you want us to kind of research into and deep dive and kind of explain and clarify, whatever content people actually want to listen to, I guess makes sense. But yeah, going forward next year, I think we'll figure out how to organize that a little bit better and make it easier to submit and subscribe to this information that we do. Yeah, I guess we can call it a wrap and see y'all next Friday. Back to the original time. Today was weird on multiple parts, but next Friday is 10 Central, 11 Eastern, early 8 in the morning in the West Coast. Sure. Like, share, subscribe. Thanks for joining us. Next week, episode 23 on Friday. Adios.